Inside the Magic, show number 327 for July 10th, 2011. It is Sunday, July 10th, 2011. This is show 327 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti. We do have another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get started, I do invite you all to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcast videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, or questions, you can write to me at Ricky@InsideTheMagic.net or call and leave a message at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Beat the heat this summer and book a 5-night package with park tickets for July or August travel dates, and everyone in your party is going to receive a free one-day water park ticket to Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach. That's definitely a great way to beat the heat. Restrictions apply, and so if you're interested in that, you are going to want to call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive a free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by listeners like you, thanks very much to all of our monthly recurring donators, anybody who makes a single donation to the show, or anybody who clicks through any of our affiliate links over on InsideTheMagic.net. Certainly appreciate all of your support. And I thank you for that. And now we'll start off the show with our trip around the world. And here we are, show 327 of Inside the Magic. As I've mentioned on the last few weeks' shows, we are once again live, doing live video over at InsideTheMagic.net/live. And I made a point to mention last week on the show not to necessarily find us on any particular service for the live stream. Just go over to InsideTheMagic.net/live on Sunday afternoons, because I'm going to be mixing it up and try to figure out which live streaming service is actually best. And it seems like the one I'm using this week, I'm now using Stickcam, and a combination of that in a separate chat room seems to be working pretty well. Hopefully it'll work out, less advertisements that are getting in the way and things like that. So I do invite everybody to tune in Sunday afternoons, no specific time, usually around 2 p.m., 3 p.m.-ish Eastern time. So if you haven't tuned into the live video, you can do that. And then on the next day, usually by Monday, I will have had the replay of the live video over on our YouTube channel as well. So with that said, once again, let's jump right into some Disney news this week. And there's actually some pretty big news to talk about throughout the week, despite it being summer, where summer is usually a time when there's not a whole lot of news, not a lot of attraction openings, except at the beginning. Obviously, May was very, very much packed with that sort of thing. Usually summer, it's so crowded that Disney and all the theme parks usually like to just kind of let it ride for the summer and just deal with the crowds. But there is some pretty big news coming up very soon. Actually, we're going to talk about first the D23 Expo, which is about a month and a half or so from now. It's in Anaheim, California, of course, right near Disneyland at the Anaheim Convention Center. It's August 19th through 21st. And this year's D23 Expo will feature a wonderful arena schedule with big presentations, and that is what this week Disney released, the complete lineup of that big arena schedule. And I want to run through those presentations that Disney announced for you real quick here on Friday, beginning the D23 Expo this year, August 19th. At 11 a.m., it will all launch with the 2011 Disney Legends ceremony. We've talked about this on the show already. Disney had released all the information about that. It's going to be hosted by Tom Bergeron once again, and some of the honorees include Regis Philbin, Jim Henson, a whole bunch of Disney princess voices, and many other people as well. So that's not new news, but the rest of this is later in that same day on Friday, August 19th, is when Disney's going to be putting on their big Walt Disney Parks and Resorts presentation. Now, this is the same presentation, same sort of presentation back at D23 Expo in 2009, where they had announced Star Tours 2, where they had announced the Fantasyland expansion. So we can definitely expect some pretty big things to come out of it again this time. And this time it's actually an hour and a half long. It's from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. and it will be hosted by Tom Staggs, chairman of the Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. So, of course, we don't know what exactly is going to be in there. Last time, Star Tours and Fantasyland were both kind of leaked or rumored or hinted before the expo actually started, but this time haven't heard anything too concrete as to what could possibly show up. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens then. So those are the two big presentations in the arena at the convention center for that day. Then on Saturday, August 20th, starting at 11 a.m., is going to be, this is an hour and a half as well, the Walt Disney Studios will be having a big presentation. Now, back in 2009, this is when Johnny Depp came out as Captain Jack Sparrow. This is where we saw John Travolta, we saw Tim Burton, we saw Miley Cyrus, and a whole lot more, and we can certainly expect plenty of excitement out of this one as well. Hosting it will be the current chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, Rich Ross. Also, there will be Sean Bailey, president of production for Walt Disney Studios. John Lasseter will be there, who's, of course, chief creative officer for Walt Disney Animation Studios and Pixar Animation Studios. And then Kevin Feige, the president of production for Marvel Studios, will be there. And a lot of people are thinking that we may see a glimpse of the Avengers when he comes out because, well, they're not going to be showing that off at San Diego Comic-Con this year. So that could be what's in store for us for the D23 Expo. We'll just have to wait and see. Should be pretty exciting for everybody who's going to be there in person. Then for the rest of the day, there's actually not another huge big panel presentation. Last year there was one from ABC Television, which of course Disney owns, but this year there's no ABC presentation. Instead, at 6 p.m. till 7:30 p.m. that night is going to be the presentation of The Lion King in 3D. It's kind of a premiere almost, a pre-screening of seeing The Lion King in 3D. So that's it for Saturday. Of course, there'll be a lot of other things going on throughout the D23 Expo. These are just the big arena presentations. Then on Sunday, August 21st, 10 a.m., a little bit earlier, 10 a.m. till 11:30 a.m., another hour and a half presentation is going to be Marvel Comics, an entire hour and a half devoted to Marvel, which, of course, Disney acquired I don't know, last year. I can't remember exactly when they acquired it, but they're going to be talking about everything that is Marvel, from comics to movies and everything in between. Really kind of an introduction to the Disney fan audience about what Marvel is all about. And there will be, let's see, the host of this will be Joe Quesada, who's Marvel's chief creative officer and just a big part of what Marvel is all about. So should be pretty exciting there. And then following that will be the Disney Channel presentation at 2:30 p.m. till 4 p.m. in which Shake It Up will be the stars there. You're going to have the cast of Shake It Up and plenty more for Disney Channel fans to enjoy. So that is the arena schedule for the D23 Expo. Amongst that, or amidst all of that, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of new exhibits on the convention floor, and then I'm sure there's also going to be a schedule of smaller presentations that will happen throughout the Expo. But Disney hasn't announced any of those yet, but when they do, I'll certainly bring it all to you. And of course, D23 Expo tickets are still available. The discounted rate ended at the end of June, but you can certainly still purchase tickets, and I will be there for all 3 days and covering it all. Should be a whole lot of fun. Speaking of conventions, just coming up, it's coming up right around the corner, just a couple of weeks from now, is the San Diego Comic-Con. In fact, less than a couple of weeks. And recently we talked about how Walt Disney Studios is not going to have a big presentation at San Diego Comic-Con this time around. Disney Channel and Disney XD, as I mentioned, I think last week, are going to be presenting Phineas and Ferb and a little bit about Tron Uprising, which I'm looking forward to, and then Kick Buttowski and a few others in a few different panel presentations. But now ABC, which is going to be absent from the D23 Expo, is going to have some pretty big panels for the San Diego Comic-Con. On Friday, July 22nd, ABC will be putting on a panel about the show The River, and that's going to have a lot of the cast members there. On Saturday, July 23rd, at Comic-Con, there's going to be a panel for Once Upon a Time and another for Charlie's Angels. Much of the cast of both of those will be there as well. And then on Sunday, there'll there'll be a panel about Castle. So if you're a fan of any of those shows and you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con like I am, then you might want to check those out. I'm not much of a fan of television really in general. I don't watch a lot of TV, so I don't know if I'll be going to any of those ABC panels. It does interest me, though, there's a new show coming out on ABC pretty soon called Pan Am. Seems like it could be a good show, and there's not going to be a panel for that show specifically at Comic-Con, but they are going to have a first-class cabin, as they're calling it, as a booth inspired by a 1960s Pan Am plane. There's going to be a lot of swag handed out at the convention, so I'll have to stop by and check that out. And, of course, you'll be able to check in to InsideTheMagic.net throughout all 4 days of San Diego Comic-Con, as we're going to have a whole lot of fun just running all over that convention, covering any Disney topics that I can find, and Marvel and anything like that, but also plenty of other topics, just having fun at the convention. So it should be a good amount of fun. All right, let's get away from some convention news and actually move into some interesting Disney business news that came out this week. This was a bit of a surprise. Of course, I think it was either last week or the week before I had mentioned that Al Weiss is retiring from the Walt Disney Company after almost 39 years of being with the company, and he had a very high-up position in the Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. Well, now, even though he's not officially retiring from the company for a couple of months, he essentially has stepped down from his position, and Tom Staggs, chairman of Parks and Resorts, has stepped in and actually eliminated his position and added a new position for Walt Disney World President Meg Crofton. And Meg Crofton's new position is now President of Operations in the United States and France. And that means she's President of Operations for Walt Disney World, Disneyland Resort, and Disneyland Resort Paris. A lot of Disney fans are not entirely thrilled with this news. Meg Crofton has a lot of non-supporters, if you will. It's all part of what Disney has been calling One Disney, a sort of unification of all of the Disney business units in order to see kind of one overseeing body that is looking at all their parks. So in this case, it would be, like I said, Walt Disney World, Disneyland in California, as well as Disneyland Paris. Crofton is also becoming part of Tom Staggs' executive committee, so you can expect to see much more from Crofton throughout the United States, not just in Florida and then overseas as well. In addition, Staggs made another executive change this week. Carl Holt, who is the president of Disney Cruise Line and Adventures by Disney, is now also going to oversee Disney Vacation Club and is going to be on Staggs' executive committee as well. So some more shifting there. Disneyland president George Kalogridis is still going to be president of Disneyland. It's not like Meg Crofton is taking over his role. Likewise, Disneyland Paris president Philippe Gas is going to continue to be Disneyland Paris president. However, both of them will be reporting to Crofton. She'll be one notch up in the executive ranking from them. In addition, Disney Vacation Club president Jim Lewis is going to report to Holtz. And as we're talking about Disneyland, here's a bit of news from out there in California. Actually, back in June of last year, 2010, I had gone pretty in-depth on the assistive technology that Disney had rolled out here at Walt Disney World to assist blind people as they're walking through the parks with audio cues and be able to hear narrations, descriptive narration as you walk through. Well, that has now been rolled out at Disneyland Park as well, with similar handheld audio devices to assist blind guests as they're making their way through. It's not available at Disney California Adventure quite yet. That's supposed to come sometime next year, but it's good news for anybody who is not able to see and walking around Disneyland Resort, or at least Disneyland Park for now, and then throughout Walt Disney World as well. Have some definitely some great assistance there. And while we're talking about California, I was recently out there, as anybody who's been listening or watching knows. I've been covering a lot of Disneyland content, and Disney is currently renovating the Disneyland Hotel in California. And part of that renovation, and this is something they've been working on for a few years now, is several elaborately themed suites throughout one of their towers, the Adventure Tower, as it's now called, formerly the Dreams Tower. And I had a chance to walk through all of these, all except except for one of these new elaborate suites. They're really, really exciting. And so I have started a new series of posts over at InsideTheMagic.net where I'm giving you kind of a virtual tour of these signature suites, as Disney is calling them. They're on the 11th floor of that Adventure Tower. And the suites are the Adventureland Suite, Big Thunder Mountain Suite, Fantasyland-ish Suite, which is the Fairy Tale Suite, I believe, the Pirates of the Caribbean Suite, and then a Mickey Mouse Suite as well. And I've started this post series with the Adventureland Suite, so you can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to check out the video and photos of that, and then throughout the coming week or two, I'll be posting more video tours and photo tours of these fun suites. Definitely expensive to be in, to try to stay in these suites, thousands of dollars per night. Not everybody will get to do it, so I'm glad I had a chance to at least walk through and experience what these really exciting suites are like. So head on over to the website to check that out. Now here's some entirely surprising news that came out, I believe, just yesterday. Somebody uncovered some really old home movie footage. In fact, it may be the only video or film or movie footage that anybody has ever put online or that anybody even knows exists of the infamous Hatbox Ghost in the Haunted Mansion out at Disneyland. This ghost, of course, has been part of Haunted Mansion lore for many, many, many years now, and it was only apparently in the mansion for a matter of days when it first opened back in August 1969. And on YouTube, somebody made a very nice documentary about 7 minutes long about the history of the Hatbox Ghost and the mystery behind it, and then at the very tail end, they showed maybe 5 seconds, if that, of some distant footage of the ghost actually in the Haunted Mansion, which is really exciting because there's only a couple of photographs out there of the ghost in existence, something that is just not seen much. So I posted it over on our Facebook where you can watch the video. Anybody who's in the chat room right now, I'm actually going to post a link right now so you can enjoy it. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I wish the Hatbox Ghost was still around, but it is not. And maybe it'll return. I don't know. We've got a movie coming out from Guillermo del Toro in the pre-production stage where he claims that the Hatbox Ghost is going to be one of the main characters of that film. And people are saying, well, maybe the Hatbox Ghost will make a return to the Haunted Mansion as a result of that movie. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if any of that happens. But regardless, it's cool to see actual footage of the ghost. So I'll put that in the show notes as well this week for anybody to go out and click on the link and check out that video. So let's move out here to Walt Disney World now with a little bit more news, where Disney this week announced that the Disney Fairies are going to be returning to the Magic Kingdom for their meet and greets as of July 28th. So a little over a couple of weeks from now, they're going to be in the Adventureland Veranda. Of course, the Fairies used to be in Mickey's Toontown Fair in their own meet and greet area. Mickey's Toontown Fair is no more, so they can't exactly be there anymore. So they're going to be in Adventureland Veranda after they've been at Epcot since they left the Magic Kingdom. And as far as the permanent home of the Fairies in the future, it's still unclear at this point as to where exactly they'll get worked into the whole plans, Fantasyland and all of that. But that's where you'll be able to see the Fairies. Now let's jump on over to Epcot, where some menu and restaurant changes have happened. It's the San Angel Inn in the Mexico Pavilion in the World Showcase at Epcot. Of course, a lot of changes have been going on throughout the Mexico Pavilion. New restaurants opening up, and really a big shift on where you can get different types of foods. A lot of the food that was inside the San Angel Inn is now available across the way at the Hacienda and the Cantina. So now inside at the San Angel Inn, you'll now find white tablecloths and new long tables instead of the round tables, new chairs, new china. It's almost like a whole new restaurant in there. In that new restaurant, or in the revised version of the restaurant, there's now a wheeled trolley tequila service that you can enjoy tableside. New appetizers, new entrees, new desserts. So really a whole lot to try. I would run through them now, but I would just end up making myself and all of you hungry. So instead, you'll just have to head on over to the Mexico Pavilion at Epcot to see all of the new offerings there. And speaking of new things, over at Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort, they've opened a new pool, the Paddock Pool. It's a new themed area with a water slide, a horseshoe-shaped hot tub, and the Paddock Grill, which serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So anybody who is going to be staying at Saratoga Springs can now enjoy some new water activities. All right, so here's some news that just emerged, I believe yesterday or maybe on Friday, that many are not too thrilled with. Apparently, evening extra magic hours, which is where Walt Disney World Resort guests have a chance to stay a few extra hours at a certain park throughout Walt Disney World on select nights with their, the fact that they're staying at a hotel. Well, apparently monorail service is now changing on extra magic hours. Starting on July 11th, which is tomorrow, the Epcot monorail is going to be stopping their service 1 hour after regular park closing. And of course, Epcot closes pretty much every night at 9 p.m. So that means monorail service there is going to stop at 10 p.m. So you definitely need to plan ahead if you happen to park at Epcot and then monorail over somewhere else. Even bigger news than that is starting August 1st, the Magic Kingdom monorail is going to stop their service 1 hour after regular park closing, not extra magic hours park closing. So let's just say the Magic Kingdom was closing at 10 p.m. and extra magic hours were till 1 p.m. Well, if regular park hours is closing at 10 p.m., that means the monorail would actually stop running at 11 p.m., which means anybody staying for that extra magic hours till 1 a.m. is no longer going to be able to use the monorail to get back to their hotel. You're going to have to take a bus or you're going to have to take a boat. It's not clear as to exactly why Disney has made this change. It could be money related. You have fewer cast members running late at night. It could be monorail safety issues. You don't want these monorail drivers to have to stay up so late as a result of extra magic hours. It could be a combination. It could be any number of reasons. Regardless, this is the way it is. As of August 1st, as I said, the Magic Kingdom monorail will stop running 1 hour after park closing, which means, and actually even separate from extra magic hours, some people linger just on Main Street and shop up to an hour after park closing. And if you're doing that, you may not be able to take the monorail on your way out. So definitely some big changes there. You got to plan ahead. You got to make sure you know where you're going to be going on the bus or a boat, or you're not going anywhere. So, fortunately, contemporary, you can still walk over there from the Magic Kingdom. That's not a problem. But getting over to the Polynesian or the Transportation and Ticket Center or to the Grand Floridian, you are going to have to take a bus or a boat late at night from the Magic Kingdom starting August 1st. Let's jump back over onto to Epcot for a moment here, where I haven't seen it for myself in person, but apparently the House of Innovations exhibit in Innovations at Epcot has reopened. I haven't seen that open in quite a long time. It's been, probably a couple of years. Well, apparently it's been updated finally with some new products. I read that there's Xbox 360 Connect in there, which is not exactly invention necessarily. It's something that anybody can get their hands on, but everything else sounds pretty interesting. Some appliances from Siemens, some bathroom stuff from Kohler, some Hewlett-Packard stuff, something called a water mill that purifies water vapor. So anybody heading on over to Innovations, which I guess I'll have to do soon, because House of Innovations was always one of my favorite exhibits in there. So I'm glad to hear that it's been updated and is open again. Let's turn away from Disney here for some news that I'm really excited about. Everybody who has listened to the show for a long time knows that I'm a huge Halloween fan, and Halloween in Central Florida is a lot of fun. Well, this week, Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, hinted at one of the haunted houses, new haunted houses that's going to be part of Howl-O-Scream this year, and apparently it's going to be themed around the stories, tales, and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, which is really exciting to me. I'm a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe to begin with, and anything inspired by that, especially a haunted house, should be pretty exciting, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. And speaking of Halloween, here's some Disney Halloween news that I really, really wish would be for the United States, but it instead is actually for Disneyland Paris, more specifically the Walt Disney Studios Park, where Disney has teased a bit about Terrorific Night 2011. And this is basically a series of events that is getting bigger and better. It seems like it began as a one-night event back in 2008. It was like a separate corporate event called Terrorific Night. And then the following year, it was Terrorific Night 2, but it was still a one-night event, October 30th. Now they've expanded on it. They've made it a two-night event at Disneyland Paris. It's going to be October 29th and October 30th. It's got scare actors. It's a Halloween-themed shows. It has a terror tram ride. The teaser image that Disney has released shows the Tower of Terror in the background, the water tower, and some zombies walking around, which is not something you'd expect from Disney, but I love it. I wish something like this would come to the United States. Not all the details have been released for this year's Terrorific Night event at Paris, but last year Disney described the event as, quote, prepare to face the darkest night at Walt Disney Studios Park. Attractions are open exclusively for clients with gruesome creatures, monstrous characters, and otherworldly artists haunting the abandoned park. That just sounds like so much fun to me. In 2010, the cost of admission was £24 per person, roughly $38 per person. The event hours were from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. As I said, the details for this year haven't been released yet, but I would love to see that event come to Hollywood Studios out here in Florida or to California Adventure out there. But, this is just making me want to jump overseas and see this in Paris. It looks like so much fun. All right, one more bit of news this week, and it's in the world of movies where, of course, we have talked about Pirates of the Caribbean many times on this show because it is a huge franchise. Well, the fifth movie is in the works. A script is already in the works. And now it has been said that star of the film, Johnny Depp, Captain Jack Sparrow himself, is said to be very close to making a deal to be in that fifth Pirates film. Of course, I can't imagine them doing a Pirates of the Caribbean film without Johnny Depp. That just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So it seems like all is a go for that fifth Pirates film. No date, no story, no anything like that. But it's possible that maybe at the D23 Expo we'll see a sort of a similar thing that happened in 2009 when that is when they essentially announced the title on Stranger Tides of the fourth Pirates film, and that's when Johnny Depp came out as Captain Jack Sparrow. So I would really love to see him come out once again. I doubt they'll do that. I doubt they'll have a repeat of what they did last time. Of course, Johnny Depp is also working on, he's going to be Tonto in the Lone Ranger film, so I could almost see them sort of doing a spin on what they did last time and have the very first reveal of Johnny Depp as Tonto. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens at the Expo. Regardless, seems like a fifth Pirates film is quite likely. And that's about it for news this week. Of course, you can always head on over to InsideTheMagic.net to check our show notes, to see links to stories and any related pictures and videos and all of that in the podcast section of the website. So that's it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip comes in from Paige, who writes, while on vacation at Disneyland many years ago, my family and I discovered a great way to be in the front of the line at gates before the park opens. One morning on our vacation, we arrived at the front gates and were mildly disappointed that the lines to get into Disneyland stretched quite a ways past the monorail track. As we stood in line, my sister and I decided to walk up to the front to peek inside the park and see which design Disney had thought up this year to display their flowers in front of the train station, and while my parents held our spots in line. After standing there for a few minutes, a cast member walked right over to the gate we were standing in front of and flipped the sign that said exit to entrance. We couldn't believe our luck and the fact that we were now in the front of a line to get into the park. So my tip is hang out around the gates that read exit, and you might get a front of the line spot. Paige, a very interesting tip there. Certainly, that's the way those turnstiles work. The exit signs flip to entrance and vice versa whenever the crowd control is needed, depending on the lines. And it's, not guaranteed that cast members going to come over and flip an exit sign to be an entrance sign, but it's certainly possible, especially in the morning when there are those very long lines. So great tip. I like that one. I hadn't really ever thought of trying that out. So thanks very much, Paige, and everyone else out there, email your tips into tips@InsideTheMagic.net. And we're going to be welcoming Skipper Ben to the show here in just a moment. But before we get to him, I do want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you have a business you'd like to promote, or maybe you're going to go into a convention or you're hanging around a school or a church, you need to wear those name tags around your neck. Custom lanyards, best way to do that, and we will customize them for you over at lanyardlab.com. Fill out our price quote form. Send us all your ideas, your design, your text, anything you want to see on there. We'll email you back with a price quote and a proof showing you what the lanyards will look like. If you like it all, you can purchase right there on the website. Otherwise, you can let us know what you want changed. We'll work with you to make it exactly right to what you want. So check it out over at lanyardlab.com. And now it is time for everybody's favorite former Jungle Cruise skipper. Of course, that is Skipper Ben. And with it being the summer, he has some really good tips for us this week. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn the microphone on over to Skipper Ben for this week's Cruising the World.
Hello everyone, Skipper Ben here, and it's time for another edition of Cruising the World. And well, looky here, look who guessed to join us this week. It's Princess Lisa.
Hello everyone.
How are you doing, Princess Lisa?
Miserable, thank you.
Why is that?
It's really hot here in Texas, and I'm really pregnant.
Oh, that thing. I had no idea. Congratulations.
Whatever.
Well, that kind of brings us to what I wanted to talk about this week. You are pregnant, walking around Texas in 106-degree weather. We hit 106 yesterday. You couldn't tell that though, could you?
I think every inch of me felt it.
And while we're not going to spend the segment this week talking about ways to stay cool in Texas during the summer months, I thought we could talk about ways to stay cool at Walt Disney World during the summer months. And this has nothing to do if you're pregnant or not. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have much of an opinion here. But I thought we would go park by park and discuss some of the ways that we enjoy staying cool, and maybe be some good pointers for those who are either at the parks now or having a visit here very soon. So let's just start at the obvious. Magic Kingdom. What do you like to do to beat the heat at the Magic Kingdom?
Well, one of the ways that I like to do beat the heat is going on Space Mountain. Not only is it, of course, inside and air conditioned, but it's really dark, and it feels like you're getting away from all the really hot sun rays of Florida and just escaping for a little bit.
And depending on, especially if you're going during the summer, you could be escaping for quite a while with that line.
That's true. I mean, I would say get a fast pass, but sometimes it's nice to get away for a little bit.
Especially since they have the interactive elements inside the queue now. It's not like it used to be where you're just standing around and waiting and being bored the whole time. I actually really like those the little video games that you can play while you wait in line.
Yeah, at least you're adding some interest to waiting. But like I said, it's just nice and cool in there.
It is, and that's kind of the direction I take as well. You could go for the obvious with Splash Mountain, but really, you don't get that wet on Splash Mountain unless you're in the front of the line. And, a good portion of the ride, you're actually still outside in the sun. So I'm going to stay away from Splash Mountain myself. And the one that I would go with is Pirates of the Caribbean. Again, you are getting out of the sun and all that stuff, but especially the first part of the ride where you're going through the caves and you get some of that really cold air conditioning blowing down on you, that to me just really cools you off. And it's a good long ride, so it's not something you're just 2 minutes on and 2 minutes off. You get to stay inside the building for a good little while and get out of the sun, get out of the heat.
Yeah, and sometimes you get splashed by the cannons, and that's always a nice, cool treat.
Yeah, I've totally gotten soaked on that ride the last 2 times I've been there. The first time was we were sitting in the very front of the boat, and your dad was on there, and I was on there. We had the front row completely packed, and for some reason, when we hit the bottom of the hill, we just kicked up a lot of water that splashed all over us, and I remember getting off the ride, wetter on that than I've ever been on Splash Mountain even. And then the last time, we were really close to one of those cannons when it went off, and the water just went up the side, over the side of the boat and right into our laps.
And I feel like the cannons get splashed a little bit higher than before, so you get a little bit more wet.
A little bit more wet, but you're not really supposed to get wet at all at that point, I think, right now. But that's, we can attest to that you can get wet if you get next to those cannons at just the right time. So, but moving on from there, Epcot is next up on the list. Where's your favorite place to cool off at Epcot?
Well, for me, it's any of the shops in the World Showcase.
What a shock. Shopping keeps you cool.
Yep, it does. And I'm trying to think of, I really like the Japan pavilion because it's really nice and big, and it always seems to be really cool in there.
And can we get a kakigori while we walk through there?
Well, when we're outside, yeah.
But we'll bring it in.
Okay.
The place is big. You gotta have some refreshments to get all the way through it. You know, you might not survive, might not make it through. So I'm just saying, let's get a kakigori before we walk through there.
It would make it extra cool.
For me, this is a tough one, but I'm gonna have to go with Club Cool.
Big shocker.
It's got the name in the title, Cool. It's got to be a great place to cool off.
Not really, because the drinks aren't that great.
Mezzomix is awesome. I don't know what you're talking about. Mezzomix is really good.
And what about Beverly?
Well, I go with the Mezzomix because I'm German. Beverly, I've got no Italian blood in me. You're the Italian in the family. Why don't you like Beverly?
I love it, and everyone should go out and try it.
You know what? If it doesn't taste good to you, you can at least, get a whole cup of it and pour it on your head when you get outside. That'll cool you off.
No, that's all right.
Beverly. So, I like Club Cool. It's fun to me. It's a place where you can get free refreshments. Where else can you get something free at Disney World, to be honest? I mean, nowhere. And especially on a hot day when you need something cold to drink and it's free. Come on, that's a perfect mix.
Yeah, and then you can buy some Coke.
Frozen Cokes again. Hey, there you go.
I don't like that, but it's cold.
I must admit, though, it was much better when they actually had the ice cave that you had to walk through and it was snowing on you.
Well, I always thought it was funny they had parkas. Like you're going to wear a parka when it's 100 degrees outside.
It's part of the costume. The cast members, they got to sacrifice for their art.
Yeah, I wouldn't be doing that.
Hey, I wore a trench coat at Muppets our lab coat, almost like a trench coat, lab coat at Muppets during the summer months.
Hence why you're a dork.
Well, and hence why I lost like 30 pounds, literally, that first summer I worked out there.
Yeah, still, I wouldn't be doing that.
So, okay, we got Shopping and World Showcase, and we got Club Cool at Epcot. Let's go over to the Disney Studios. And Disney Studios, let's see, there's not a whole lot to do to cool off over there, is there?
Yeah, there is.
What?
Tower of Terror. Perfect ride to cool off. It's indoors. You go into the basement, and of course, basements are cooler. And then going up and down.
Hold on a second. You don't go in the basement. You go in a broiler room. Something doesn't sound cool about broiler to me at all.
Well, it's cool down there.
Disney magic at its finest.
And then you go up and down, so the wind going up and down as the elevator goes up and down.
But see, what disqualifies that for me is that during the summer months, the queue oftentimes extends out into the heat, and those little misting fans, they just don't cut it for me.
Well, if you get close to the misting fans, I guess.
Although the misting fans at night are a lot of fun because it gives it that extra spooky, eerie feeling.
See, there you go.
Alright, well, for me, I'd have to go back on the streets of America and stand under the umbrella in the Singing in the Rain.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm kidding, I wouldn't do that. I don't like to walk around the parks wet. For me, it's maybe a toss-up between... there's two things. I like the Great Movie Ride, again, because it's a nice, long ride, indoors, and you get to sit down the whole time and cool off. But I also think there's an element to sitting on the left-hand side of the backlot tour for Catastrophe Canyon and getting nice and wet from all the water coming down on you.
That's only for like 3 seconds.
But it's a great 3 seconds.
But you don't even want to get wet.
That's not what the tram rider says at the front. He says those sitting on the right, you're going to get a little bit wet, and those sitting on the left, you're going to get soaked.
But we know that you don't like it.
We also know that nobody has ever really gotten soaked on that ride.
That's true too.
We should try that sometime. everybody should ride it, take a picture, and see how soaked you actually get. It just doesn't happen. But it's a good laugh at the first of the ride.
Yeah, especially for people that have never been on it. It's quite amusing.
Is it too late for me to go back and change my answer for the Hollywood Studios, though? Are you going to disqualify me? Because I think you're going to agree with me immediately once I say it, because it just popped in my head, and I'm kind of mad I didn't think of it at first.
I don't know. Late thinking? All right, try me out.
The first 3 rows of Voyage of the Little Mermaid.
You're a dork.
Are you kidding me? The water curtain and the little mist of water that hits you. First off, it's already cool inside that theater. And then second, when you get hit with that water 2 or 3 times during the show, it feels great.
It does feel quite cool.
And that's the point of this whole segment, is it not?
I guess so.
So there's a couple great examples there at the Hollywood Studios, and now we're going to obviously head over to the coolest of all the parks at Walt Disney World. Really, you don't have to pick anything out here. It's like right when you walk through the front gate, you're almost looking for a jacket and then some pants to put on because you're so cold immediately once you walk in there, and that, of course, is the Animal Kingdom.
Well, I was thinking you want a new outfit because you're so hot from being sweaty.
At the Animal Kingdom?
It's just horrible.
Are we talking about the same park here?
I can't even think of one place that's cool there.
Alright, you brainstorm for a second, and I'm going to think of something for a second. Yeah, it's a tough sell there. You have the obvious. You have Cali River Rapids. But, again, I'm not one who loves to get soaked and walk around soaked all day. So I'm going to pass on Cali River Rapids. What I'm going to go with is, and you know me because I'm the one that always picks out the seat here. It's about a third of the way back, dead center at It's Tough to Be a Bug. So you are hit right in the face with the smoke that comes down when when they do the little bug spray and they smoke out the whole room, and it's that real cold air that comes blowing down on you. That's my spot, is being in that seat and just getting hammered with that bug spray and cooling off immediately during It's Tough to Be a Bug.
You really had to think hard about that one, didn't you?
Not really, because that's actually high on my list. I really like that whole part of the show. I love It's Tough to Be a Bug to begin with, but I really enjoy that part of the show. And I don't admit it and I don't tell people, but I always make sure I get to do that at least once during every trip.
I do like that ride or attraction. It's quite nice. I guess I thought of one other one. It would have to be Dinosaur. So, you're on a safari type thing going through, and it is quite air conditioned in there. It's dark, nice.
And you're going fast through the building, so the wind's kind of blowing through your hair.
Yeah, so, the dinosaurs are going after you, and I can't remember if there's any fog or anything in there. I don't think there is.
No, but at the end when the asteroid hits and we're all about to die, there is that big explosion and a big blast of air hits you right in the face.
Yeah, so you get one blast of air, but overall the ride's very cool.
And it's indoors for the queue for the most part, and usually the line's pretty short, so you can kind of just walk back on over and over and over again and not really have to worry about it.
But in the summer months it might be longer.
Yeah, but not too bad. So there's some good pointers there for everybody in the parks. Do you have any place outside of the parks that you especially like to hit during the summer months to beat the heat at Disney World?
Well, there's the obvious. There's, of course, the water parks. But if we're not going for the obvious water parks, which sometimes really isn't that cool because you're obviously outdoors in the sun, I go for my favorite, which is Beaches and Cream, to get some nice cold ice cream.
Yes, I enjoy Beaches and Cream as well, but if you don't mind, I am going to go for the obvious. And I'm going to go for the Shark Reef over at Typhoon Lagoon, and it's wonderful 67-degree water that is bitter cold during the hot summer months. Absolutely love that.
That would be good right about now.
But it's nearly midnight and we're indoors right now. Don't you think it's a little late to be swimming with sharks?
That's why I just cranked down the AC to 67.
No joke. My electric bill is insane.
Well, at least I'm cool.
We were going to go to Disney World here in another month, but I can't afford it right now.
There's no way.
So there's some good ideas for you for beating the heat at Walt Disney World during the summer. Of course, there's also, again, the obvious: drink plenty of water while you're out there, and wear sunscreen, and stay indoors as much as possible.
And if you can think about it, bring one of those little mister fans. Put some ice water in it, and you spray it and mist the fan. Oh, it's quite delightful.
Quite delightful. And then there's always the Hall of Presidents that you can just camp out in there for like 7 shows in a row, and you won't get hot at all.
You won't have any entertainment at all, but that'll be good.
Our presidents would be so disgusted in you right now.
I have so many things to say about that.
That's for another segment, another time, for Ricky's political podcast. But that's it for this week on Cruising the World. Before we go, though, I do want to thank everybody who emailed, and I do mean everybody, and everybody, and everybody, and everybody who emailed to let me know that Kobe sounds like Kirby. I got it now. I got it.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the emails, and it just didn't hit me quite because I was a little bit pregnant-brained, but yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Kobe, Kirby, whatever. It's Kobe Bryant. You should have just known right off the bat.
I don't care that much.
Obviously. So, we'll talk to you guys again here real soon, but in the meantime, this is Skipper Ben.
And Princess Lisa.
Saying back to you, Ricky.
And thanks very much, you two. Great to hear you both back on the show, and it is certainly hot. It's not just you in Texas; it's hot out here in Florida. Fortunately, we have those afternoon rains that happen just about every day. Cools it down a bit, but then gets really humid afterwards. So all of those tips are very important, and I think you mentioned almost everything that I would have suggested for staying cool around the Walt Disney World parks. Magic Kingdom, certainly Haunted Mansion is my go-to spot for anything at all, not just staying cool, which is it is great for because the AC is always cranked in there, but also just a great attraction overall. My favorite, of course, you mentioned the Hall of Presidents just a minute ago. Definitely a great place to cool off there as well. Lots of seating always available. I used to love going into Alien Encounter because there was multiple air-conditioned rooms, and then you ended up sitting in the end. You even got spritzed with a little bit of water, and it used to be a great place to cool off, and I loved that attraction. Of course, that isn't there anymore, and Stitch's Great Escape just doesn't count. Not doing it. And then, but I'm not sure that you mentioned, and if you did, maybe I just totally spaced out there for a second, but Dole Whip over at the Magic Kingdom is another great way to cool off. Of course, you did mention over at Epcot Club Cool, certainly a wonderful way to cool off. I liked the old version of Club Cool where you got to walk through that icy, really, really cold section before sampling the different bits of Coke. Unfortunately, that's not there anymore, but at least you can still down all of the different flavors of Cokes from around the world that you could possibly need in order to cool off there. A great way to do it. And then maybe hop a ride on Spaceship Earth after that if you can just ignore that one section of Rome where it's burning and it smells like it's hot. It's not really hot in there, but it smells like it's hot, and that might make you warm. And the industrial scene's a little bit warm as well, but for the most part, it's usually pretty cool in there. Over at Hollywood Studios, a great movie ride, of course, is one of the longest rides there, and it's all air-conditioned, so a good way to cool off. And even from the moment you enter the queue, even if you have to wait, at least you're in the air conditioning. So a good place there. And then Ben did mention it's tough to be a bug at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Did they drop the apostrophe S on that one? I don't even remember. It's hard to keep track. But regardless, Animal Kingdom, tough to be a bug. Another good way to cool off once you're in there, but walking down there in the heat and the humidity and all the plants around you and everything can be a little toasty, but that's pretty much how Animal Kingdom goes. So definitely some great tips, and most importantly, what you said there at the end. Oh, somebody in the chat room, Devin in the chat room, just mentioned Finding Nemo. Definitely. The Finding Nemo show at Animal Kingdom is a great place to cool off. It's comfortable, and it is most certainly air-conditioned in there. So good tip there. But as I was saying, at the end there, you mentioned drinking lots of water, and that is the biggest tip that I can ever give to anybody coming to the parks in the summer, or really anybody doing anything outside. I've had the unpleasant experience of being dehydrated on a number of occasions, and it is just it is no fun. Definitely stop at least at the water fountains, grab some water whenever you see it. You gotta stay hydrated when that heat is out there. So thanks again, Ben and Lisa.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
So we're actually keeping the structure of the show pretty simple this week. We did the news, we did the tip for today, we welcomed Ben and Lisa on the show, and now we're just going to jump right into listener feedback because I do still have a lot of catch-up to do here, and hopefully we can get through it all. And then in the coming weeks, I have so much more planned. I've got more reviews and interviews and event coverage and all of that sort of thing. I figured I'd just do a nice, straightforward, simple show this week and jump back into all of that in the coming weeks. So now let's jump right into the email, see if I can find where I left off last time. I'm now scrolling through all of the emails that I already read because I forgot to remove them from my show notes. So here we go. All right, so I have an email from Jackson who writes, I just got back from a trip to Disneyland and have a few questions to ask. One, I noticed that Innoventions is unpopular. I was wondering if there are any plans to shut it down or turn it into a Tron Legacy ride, which would work for Tomorrowland, or a Carousel of Progress. 2, Cars Land is going to have Radiator Springs Racers, which is similar but not exactly like Autopia. I wanted to hear your opinion on what you think they will do for Autopia if they get rid of it. What would be your opinion for what they put in? And number 3, I went on Star Tours 4 times and was amazed at how incredible it was. I was, P.S., I was the Rebel Spy 1 time and it was awesome. I was wondering how many planets are possible to go to. We figured out that the 4 gates decide how the trip ends. Unfortunately, we only saw 2 endings. Another question we have is, have you seen any hidden Mickeys or Easter eggs? I know it's impossible to look for them because you don't know exactly what to look for. Well, Jackson, definitely a great set of questions there, and I will work on answering them now. Number 1, it's interesting that you said, will Carousel of Progress go into Innoventions out of Disneyland? Well, that's what that building originally was. That was the Carousel of Progress before it came out here to Florida, and it's highly unlikely that that is going to return to Innoventions out there. You mentioned a Tron Legacy ride. There certainly have been rumors of a Tron attraction going in that space. There have been rumors of a Stark Expo introduction of Marvel Universe into Tomorrowland at Disneyland, but I will stress that all of that is rumors. Nothing has been said firmly as to what will or may or won't replace Innoventions out there. Certainly Innoventions is not terribly popular out in California for a number of reasons, but at this point I haven't heard anything real specific, and maybe we'll see some of that at the D23 Expo. Who knows? Number 2, you're asking about Radiator Springs and Autopia. The 2 are totally unrelated as far as I'm concerned. Radiator Springs Racer is going to be a ride very similar to Test Track out here in Florida, but with the Cars theme, and it's going to be much more involved than Test Track is. Autopia, on the other hand, is totally different. It's you power the cars yourself by putting your foot on the pedal, and you drive around under your own control, and it's a more of a kiddie interactive sort of ride, whereas Radiator Springs Racers is going to be a dark ride / thrill ride. So I can't imagine that just because Radiator Springs Racers is opening over at California Adventure for Cars Land, anything at all would happen to Autopia. It just seems like there's no reason to close that for any reason. So. And then as far as Star Tours, you want to know how many planets are possible. Well, there's 6 different destinations that you could go to, and then a number of other variations as well. So if you said I think you said you saw 4 different planets. Well, you're missing a couple still. So definitely some possibilities that you still have to work out. And then there's some other in the middle variations that I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. But definitely go back and ride it a few more times because it sounds like you haven't seen everything, and I haven't seen everything yet. I still have not seen pod racing on Star Tours. Of course, I haven't been back there recently, so I definitely need to go back pretty soon and try another trip into the Star Wars Star Tours universe to see it. As far as hidden Mickeys or Easter eggs, I'll mention one thing that somebody pointed out to me at one point. There's a couple of different intros you can get in Star Tours, and in one of them, the majority of what you're seeing is very much in the forefront of the the scene. There's characters looking right at you and characters right behind that character, and a lot to see there. But you might want to keep your eyes focused in the background of that scene. Again, I don't want to spoil it for anybody out there, but if you look in the background of one of them, one of the intros, then you'll see some extra fun with some characters that you might not have noticed. Keep your eyes moving all over the screen at all times, and you'll see some tidbits here and there. If you're here's another one. You'll find the mighty microscope from Adventure Through Inner Space years ago out of Disneyland. You will find it. It's hidden in the Death Star scene in Star Tours, so you're going to want to keep your eyes out for that as well. A couple of little tidbits there. Here's an email from Amy who writes, my question is about River Country. I know it closed a while ago, but do you know what happened to it? I recently saw a video on YouTube where some guys broke in and showed what was left. It was the strangest thing, like everyone just up and left. The music still played, and they had tubes floating around and tables and chairs set up. Some of the pools had been drained, some had water simply evaporated over time. Have you heard about plans to renovate the water park or use the land in another way? I only visited River Country once when I was a kid, but I loved it. Take a look on YouTube. They inserted clips of the park in full swing, and then they showed today's current state of demise. You would think Disney would have cleaned up after they shut the park down instead of just leaving it there to degrade. Well, you hit the nail on the head. That's pretty much where it is now. It's just sitting there. And as to why Disney just decided to shut it down and leave it there and did nothing else, I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I haven't heard any plans for it to be renovated or improved or reopened or demolished or anything. It costs money to demolish something, and if you don't have plans for that area and you can just wall it off and not let anybody in there, then why spend the money if you can just let it sit there, I suppose. So it's pretty much... It is what you saw in that video, and that's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. Let's jump into the chat room here real quick for a question. Somebody a few minutes ago, not sure who it was, scrolling up, MMM Bisto in the chat room was asking about Le Cellier and whether or not that was actually worth going to if all of the hype is really good. And as far as I have had experiences at Le Cellier, I really, really enjoyed it. I've not had a bad experience there. Though, if you've got reservations, if you can get in, the ambiance is great, the food is great, the bread that sits there on the table when you get there is great. The soup, of course, is wonderful. And yes, everybody that I know who has been to Le Cellier says yes, it is absolutely, the hype is there for a reason because it is a great restaurant. So I would not worry about being disappointed. You will definitely enjoy it. Next up, I've got an email from Spence, who writes, a couple weeks back, a listener had asked about strollers at Walt Disney World. Disney does have a fleet of strollers available for rent at the parks. Single strollers are $15 a day, doubles are $31 a day. You can get a multi-day discount of $2 a day for singles and $4 a day for doubles. The downside of renting a Disney stroller is that they have to stay at the parks. When going in between your resort and the parks or between parks, you'll need to schlep your kids in gear without the aid of a stroller. This can be quite a feat with a tired and sleeping child at the end of a long day. There are companies in Orlando that offer stroller rentals and will drop your rental stroller off at your resort and pick it up at the end of your vacation. If you're going to be at Walt Disney World for a relatively long stay, it makes sense to do the math and see what it would cost to rent to buy versus buying one outright and bringing it with you on your trip. You can always gate check the stroller at the airport without having to pay a baggage fee. For our upcoming December trip, the amount of money we would have spent on renting a stroller was enough to buy a very nice stroller that we would be able to use not only at the airport and the resorts, but long after the trip as well. See, now that is a great tip. I certainly don't know anything about strollers or bringing kids to the parks or anything like that, but to have make that math decision whether or not buying a stroller would actually be less expensive than renting it for your duration is a great point. And even if you have no use for the stroller afterwards, if it saves you money in the end, well, you could give somebody the stroller before you leave Walt Disney World and just say, here, take it. We've used it for a week and we're done with it. We don't want to take it home, whatever. It's up to you what you want to do with the stroller at that point, but if it saves you money, then I suppose it doesn't really matter. So a good tip there. Thanks, Spence. Let's see. Anybody else in the chat room, by the way? There's a number of you in there. If you have any questions, feel free to pipe up at any time, and I will see if I can answer them for you. I think somebody asked one just a little bit ago, and it scrolled away, so I'll answer that in a minute. And while people are asking, then I will answer another question, which is from Steven, who writes, I live in New York, and I'm going to Disneyland during mid-July, and I was wondering if the dining package at California Adventure was worth it for World of Color. I heard the 2 new restaurants are also opening on July 1st at California Adventure. Do you know if it will be including those restaurants in the dining package? Also, what is your opinion of the 2 restaurants already in operation? Well, Stephen, I can only answer you in part because I haven't actually taken part in that dining plan personally. However, I've heard good things, that you get good food depending on the different options that you take for World of Color. I've heard Ariel's Grotto area is the better option, that the food is really excellent there, and of course you don't have to worry about the headache that is finding your spot for World of Color and the fast passes and waiting and this and that. It's just kind of a pain, and I wish all of that would just go away. But the dining, if you're going to be dining anyway, then it sounds like it is a good idea. I don't think those 2 new restaurants over in Paradise Pier area, the pizza place and the Garden Grill, have anything to do with the dining for World of Color. They are open, and I've heard good things about them, but it seems that Ariel's is the one that you're going to want to choose for your dining for the World of Color to get the best food out of the deal. Let's see. All right. Next email is from Daniel, who writes, I just recently heard of Flynn Rider being removed from the Tangled meet and greet. I was very upset at this news because Flynn Rider is my favorite Disney character. Myself and many others joined a petition page on Facebook for keeping Flynn in the parks, and right now the page has 2,217 likes. I wanted to ask, why are they doing this? A lot of people are very upset and fighting to keep Flynn in the parks. Well, Daniel, unfortunately, Disney never really says why they do things like that, but it's one of those instances where, let's say you've got a character meet and greet, and there's 2 characters there signing autographs. Well, it's going to take a long time for people to get through and get autographs from 2 characters at the same time versus going in, meeting Rapunzel, and leaving. And the lines for meeting Rapunzel and Flynn Rider have been fairly long, especially at Disneyland. They've been very long. And so having one character where somebody can come in, take a picture, get an autograph, and leave is a lot faster than 2. That's just my take on it, and why perhaps they would have removed Flynn Rider. But I can't say for sure one way or the other. It's just one of those things. I'm not sure any amount of online petitions is going to bring Flynn Rider back. What you can do, however, is visit Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party and the Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. Apparently Flynn Rider will be back for those, and I guess that's an added incentive to go to those extra hard ticket events. Next email is from Frank, who writes, I was just wondering what you thought about the lack of shows for grown-ups on the Disney Channel. What happened to great shows like the Ink and Paint Club, Masterpiece Theater, and Vault Disney? Why do we need to see Hannah Montana or Wizards of Waverly Place on at 10 o'clock at night? Isn't that just encouraging children to stay up later? Why has Disney Channel forgotten about us? I mean, come on, we are the ones who pay the cable bill. It's not like I'm that old. I'm only 36, but I loved watching the old Disney Channel at night. Thanks for listening to my rant. Well, Frank, please, yes, rant away, because I completely agree. I used to watch Vault Disney very late at night and loved it. And of course, Disney then came out with the Walt Disney Treasures line with a lot of those shows that they played on Vault Disney where you could go and buy them on DVD. And even that line of DVDs has now kind of gone away. So they released a lot of those, but we're not going to be getting a whole lot more of that. And of course, there are plenty of fans of Disney who are not children. It's anybody who was a child and is growing up to be adults and still enjoy Disney and all of those older shows that they grew up with, or even shows that were there before you grew up and from years ago and when Walt Disney was around and all of that. So I totally agree, and I think you'd be preaching to the choir here. Anybody who's listening to this podcast would certainly want to see any of those old shows on Disney, even stuff as recent as the 90s. Even that stuff doesn't even get played anymore. It's only new stuff that seems to get the airtime over and over and over. And maybe it comes down to ratings. ratings. Maybe it comes down to advertisers. I don't know. I can't say for sure what the business decisions behind Disney Channel not playing any of those, but I'd have to answer your question directly. Yeah, it does seem like Disney Channel has forgotten about any adults who want to watch any of that old programming, and unfortunately, I don't know if there's anything in the plans in the near future to be done about it. I'm going to be going to Comic-Con in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be going to D23 Expo. Disney Channel will have a presence at both of those. Maybe if given the chance, I can ask that very question of somebody at Disney and see if I can get some sort of an answer to that question. So thanks very much for writing that in. So we've got one more email here, and then I'll dive into some questions in the chat room, and we'll wrap up the show. This email is from West Coast Brian, a regular contributor here, and he was reminding me that the new Aladdin show has just opened in Seattle. He continues and said, also, when the show was announced several months ago, you made a passing comment as to why the show is opening in Seattle. I actually have an answer to that. It's really expensive to open a show on Broadway, so most musicals will do a trial opening in some other city, kind of like how a new TV show will create a pilot episode to test market the show before going into full production. Seattle tends to be popular with these musical trial runs, with a lot of popular musicals opening here and a few horrible flops. I haven't bought my ticket yet, but I really look forward to seeing this show. Well, Brian, thanks very much for that information. Anybody out there, if you have a chance, if you're in the Seattle area and you do see the new Aladdin musical on stage there, please feel free to send in any kind of a review or report from it. I'd love to hear all about it and see what you think. I believe there's some new music being put in there from some old Howard Ashman tunes that didn't make it into the Aladdin film, and I'd really love to know more about that. So anybody wants to write in, definitely feel free. You can email to Ricky at InsideTheMagic.net. Thanks again, Brian. All right, so a question that seems to be popping up repeatedly in the chat room here as I move into a few live questions for rounding out the show here is about the music that's playing in the background, not only now, but throughout these podcasts. And this is a question that I get quite frequently, emails and messages and that. Of course, everybody loves Disney music, and it comes from a number of sources. I, a couple of years ago, put together the website parktunes.com in an attempt to answer this question. Unfortunately, it's impossible to answer it specifically for every single piece of music because music comes from all over. I have such a vast collection of Disney music that it's tough to even pinpoint exactly where I got this versus where I got that. Some of it came from CDs over the years. There used to be some kiosks in the parks where you could put together your own music that would be throughout the parks. A lot of it is from artists that are not from Disney. They're, Yanni and artists like that are music that is played in Disney parks, and you might associate it as Disney music, but it's really just music from some other artist. In fact, the song that I played at the very top of this week's show was from the artist Checkfield, and the song was called Sundial, and it's a song that was played, I think, in Wonders of Life over at Epcot, and you might think of it as that, but it's really just a bit of music that comes from some random album somewhere. So the way I always like to answer this question about the music is to visit parktunes.com and see if you can find what you're looking for on there. That's where I have commercially available music, links to where you can go buy it on Amazon or iTunes or things like that, to what I was able to find and put together from a number of sources, and see what you could find. And if you don't find it on there, if it's music specific to a Disney park that wasn't ever commercially available, that's the tougher things to find. Ace in the chat room definitely made a good point here. A lot of people have posted soundtracks on YouTube, which you think, oh, YouTube, it's for video. Well, a lot of people put audio on there and just put a still image with the audio, and that's definitely a great place to look for. The legality of that, I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I don't know if those people necessarily have permission to post those onto YouTube. Probably not, but they're there, and so you could search for them there potentially as well. So hopefully that will help anybody who's in the hunt for any Disney music. If there are any other questions here for the chat room, please speak now, or I'll be wrapping up the show here in a second. We have a question about what kind of microphone do I use from Sam Hain in the chat room. I have been saying this forever, and I do apologize, actually. I'm glad you brought that up. I've been saying forever that I'm going to post a list of the equipment that I use, not only this microphone, but also my mixing board and my compressor and all the other equipment that I use to put together this podcast, and I have said I'm going to put that up on the website, and I just simply haven't. And so to answer your question, I actually don't remember exactly what kind of microphone, but I'm seeing if I can look it up right now to see. Okay, the microphone that I am using right now to record this podcast is called an MXL 990 condenser microphone with shock mount. So that is the name of that. I also use a Behringer compressor and a Yamaha mixing board. So maybe that'll help anybody out who's interested there. And at some point, you know what, I'm adding it to my to-do list right now to finally post that link of equipment that I use for this podcast, for the website, for the show, for the video, for my video, still photos and everything, because people are asking me that all the time, and I'd love to be able to share that information. So that is that answer for the moment. Any other questions in the chat room? Yes, I will definitely be at the D23 Expo in August. I'll be bringing that to everybody. Coverage on Twitter and Facebook. Definitely the best place to follow us while we're at both San Diego Comic-Con in a couple of weeks, as well as D23 Expo in August. Twitter.com/InsideTheMagic, Facebook.com/InsideTheMagic. Those will be the live updates, and then, of course, over on InsideTheMagic.net will be the place to catch all the recaps and the wrap-ups of everything. All right, one last question from the chat room this week, and we'll do two while we're on the subject of equipment and everything. Janine is asking if I'm taking any special equipment to San Diego Comic-Con, and no, I don't think I am. Just my usual array of equipment to bring everything to everyone. I don't think I'll be doing anything unusual for what we do. Just, the standard photos and videos and write-ups and all of that sort of thing. So definitely, stay tuned for all of that. Both Ace and Devin in the chat room are wondering if Spectro Magic is going to be returning to Walt Disney World. I haven't heard anything as such. Main Street Electrical Parade has an open-ended invitation to be out here at the Magic Kingdom, which I'm perfectly happy with, because the Main Street Electrical Parade is my favorite Disney parade. But I know a lot of people really love Spectro Magic as well, and I'm sure it's sitting back there somewhere just waiting for it to return. Devin's asking what happened to the Blue Fairy in Main Street Electrical Parade, and that used to be the beginning of the parade. Now it's Tinkerbell instead. As to the actual whereabouts of the Blue Fairy, that I couldn't tell you for sure. Dumbo's Circus float, also mentioned, is not in the parade anymore. There have been some, variations of Main Street Electrical Parade over the years, and this is just one incarnation of it. So it is, and I love it, and I catch it whenever I can, and I'm not looking forward to Spectrum Magic ever coming back. But a lot of people like that parade as well, and I don't dislike it by any means. And I think I just saw one other question that I wanted to answer here. Maybe not. So, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Thanks to everybody who was asking questions in the chat room, and thanks to all of you. Keep your emails coming. I believe I am now, caught up on emails and everything. If for some reason you sent an email and I didn't respond to you, and I haven't responded on here on the show or via email or anywhere, then maybe I lost your email somewhere along the ways. Maybe it got misfiled or something, or maybe I just somehow skipped it. So please feel free to email it in again if I haven't responded yet. And that'll do it for your listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And here we are at the end of show 327 of Inside the Magic, and it was a fairly straightforward, simple show this week. Got some news, got a little bit of fun from Ben and Lisa, and then a whole bunch of listener feedback, which we are now caught up on, which is always a good thing. So feel free to let the emails pour in, and we'll dive into them on the future shows. And as I said earlier, I do have a lot of reviews and interviews and some more event coverage and some other special little goodies to share in the coming weeks. That mixed in with with some Comic-Con coverage and the D23 Expo, and much more happening within the next few weeks and months, and I'm just looking forward to it all. So lots to be excited for in the coming weeks here on Inside the Magic. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. And of course, I invite you to visit lanyardlab.com to see all of the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. That's at lanyardlab.com. And between episodes of this show, please do head on out and visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find not only the show notes for each week, but also plenty in between episodes, lots of updates and news and articles and videos and photos and all that good stuff. Also find the links to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to keep up with all the latest and greatest from Disney and theme parks and all that good stuff. So, thanks to all of you for listening every week. Thanks to everybody who's tuning in live on Sunday afternoons. I am still tweaking the video format and the chat room format, and I know some people have had some technical difficulties this week, so hopefully we'll continue to work on that and make it the best possible format for everybody to enjoy as we move forward. It's still kind of a fresh new thing, so we can see how that goes in the near future. So that is about it this week. Anybody who wants to tune in to see the replay of the live video, head to our YouTube channel by Monday afternoon. I should have that up. So thanks to all of you for listening and watching each and every week, and have a magical week. Bye.
So there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.